Be me, Nathaniel, 52 years old, owner of a mid-sized logistics and supply chain business in the Midwest. Started this company 25 years ago with nothing but a beat-up van and a loan from my uncle. Married to the love of my life, Julian, for 26 years. We have one daughter named Alara. She is 20 years old and currently a junior in university. Growing up, Alara was my shadow. She used to come to the warehouse on Saturdays and sit on a stack of pallets drawing pictures while I loaded trucks. I worked 80-hour weeks so she would never have to worry about money. I wanted to give her the world. She was sweet, curious, and incredibly bright, straight A student all through high school. She got accepted into a prestigious liberal arts college on the East Coast. I was bursting with pride the day we dropped her off. Tuition was astronomical, but I paid it without blinking. Wanted her to have the education I never got. Fast forward to her sophomore year. Things started to change slowly. Phone calls became less frequent. When we did talk, she seemed distant. She started using words I had to look up in the dictionary, concepts about structural dynamics and systemic issues. I just listened and nodded because I was proud she was learning. But the tone was different. It wasn't excitement about learning, it was judgment. She came home for Christmas break that year. She had cut her long blonde hair short and dyed it a harsh black, piercing in her nose that looked infected. I hugged her tight and told her I missed her. She went stiff in my arms. Dinner that first night was awkward. Julian made a pot roast, which was Alara's favorite. Alara pushed it around her plate. She asked if the meat was ethically sourced. I told her it was from the butcher down the street. She gave a 20-minute lecture on the carbon footprint of cattle farming. I just ate my potatoes and tried to change the subject to her classes. She said her classes were opening her eyes to the tyranny of the modern economic system. I chuckled nervously and said, well, that system is paying for the classes. She did not laugh. She stared at me with cold eyes, said that was exactly the kind of arrogance she expected from a beneficiary of the patriarchy. I felt a knot in my stomach. Julian jumped in and asked about her roommates. The rest of the break was walking on eggshells. Every time I turned on the news, she would critique the bias. Every time I went to work, she made a comment about me exploiting my drivers. I pay my guys $5 above the union average and offer full benefits. I know every one of their kids' names, but to her I was just a capitalist cog. She went back to school and the requests for money increased. Allowance was already generous, $2,000 a month for living expenses plus paid rent and tuition, but she always needed more for books or seminars or trips. I sent it because I love her. Fast forward to this past summer, she brought a friend home with her named Sienna. Sienna was intense, never said please or thank you, treated our house like a hotel. They would sleep until 1 in the afternoon and leave wet towels on the mahogany floor. I came home early one Tuesday, found them in the living room drinking my expensive scotch mixed with diet soda. I asked them what they were doing. Sienna rolled her eyes and looked at Alara. Alara stood up and said they were decompressing from the trauma of existing in a hostile society. I told her that drinking 18-year-old scotch was a pretty luxurious way to be traumatized. Alara snapped at me. Said I cared more about my possessions than her mental health. I took a deep breath and went to the garage to cool off. Julian came out later and told me to be patient. Said it is just a phase and she is trying to find her identity. I told Julian that her identity seems to be built on hating us. Julian cried and I felt terrible, decided to try and bridge the gap. Offered to take them out for a really nice dinner. There is a steakhouse in the city that we used to go to for special occasions. White tablecloths and waiters in tuxedos. Alara agreed but said she was doing it for Mom. We get to the restaurant. Alara and Sienna are dressed in torn denim and oversized flannels. People are looking, but I do not care because I just want a nice family meal. We sit down and order drinks. I order a bottle of wine for the table. Alara starts talking about her summer plans. She wants to go to Europe for a month with Sienna, says they want to study the social structures of Scandinavian countries. She tells me she needs $10,000 for the trip. I nearly choked on my water. I told her that was a lot of money and maybe she could work a part-time job to cover half of it. The table went silent. Sienna smirked. Alara looked at me like I had slapped her. She raised her voice, said I was hoarding wealth while the world was burning, said it was my duty to redistribute my unearned privilege. People at other tables were starting to stare. I kept my voice low and calm. Said Alara, I worked 14 hours a day for 30 years to build this. Nothing was unearned. She slammed her hand on the table. Glass of water shook. She called me an oppressor. Said I was the literal embodiment of everything wrong with the world. Said I used my financial power to control women. Said I was a small-minded tyrant who got lucky. She shouted the word oppressor again. The whole restaurant was looking now. The waiter froze with a tray of appetizers. Julian was looking down at her lap with tears falling. Something inside me snapped, not a violent snap but a clarity. A cold realization that I was actually hurting her by shielding her from reality. I looked her dead in the eye, asked her if she truly believed that, asked her if she truly believed I was an evil oppressor. She lifted her chin defiantly, said yes and that she was ashamed to carry my last name. Said my money was blood money. I nodded slowly, reached into my pocket and pulled out my wallet. Pulled out the platinum credit card she carries, which is linked to my account. She looked confused. I told her to give me the card. She hesitated. I said if my money is blood money, then I cannot in good conscience force you to use it. I will not oppress you with my financial support any longer. She laughed nervously, thought I was bluffing. Sienna whispered something to her. Alara threw the card onto the table, said she did not need my money to survive. Said she was capable and strong and did not need a patriarch to save her. I picked up the card and signaled the waiter, paid for the drinks we had ordered, stood up and helped Julian out of her chair. Told Alara that since she is an adult and I am an oppressor, I will step back. Told her the tuition for the next semester is due in 3 weeks. Told her rent on her apartment is due on the 1st. Told her the allowance is canceled effective immediately. Alara sat there with her mouth open. Sienna looked furious. I told them they could Uber home or walk since the car she drove was technically company property. Julian and I walked out. The drive home was silent. Julian sobbed quietly the whole way. I felt like my heart was being ripped out, but I knew I had to stand firm. Got home and I went into my office. Canceled the credit card officially. Transferred the money from her allowance account back to savings. Removed her from the insurance policy on the car. Sat in the dark for 3 hours staring at a picture of us fishing when she was 7. Next morning my phone blew up, texts from Alara. First they were angry, calling me a narcissist and a monster. Then they were demanding, telling me I had no right to cut her off. Then they were bargaining, saying she would come to dinner if I reinstated the card. I did not reply. I sent one email. Subject line, independence. Body text, Dear Alara, you have made it clear that my values and my support are offensive to you. I respect your desire to separate yourself from my oppression. You are welcome to visit as a daughter, but the bank of dad is closed. Good luck with your studies. Love, Dad. 2 weeks passed. Julian wanted to cave. She was worried Alara would starve. I told her Alara has a meal plan at school paid through the end of the semester. She won't starve, but she won't be drinking Starbucks 5 times a day. I heard through the grapevine that she was bad-mouthing me to everyone, posted a long video on social media, crying about financial abuse, claiming I abandoned her because of her political views. It got a few thousand views. Strangers commenting saying I was trash. It hurt, but I stayed off the internet. Then came the real public incident. A buddy of mine named Greg was in the city for business. He was at a high-end coffee shop near the university. He saw Alara and Sienna and a few other friends. They were ordering a huge spread of pastries and fancy lattes. Apparently, Alara handed over her debit card, the one linked to her personal account where she used to transfer my money. Card declined. She tried it again, declined. The barista was polite and asked for another form of payment. Alara turned red. She tried to call me. I saw the call come in and let it go to voicemail. She tried to call Julian. Julian was at yoga and didn't hear it. Alara started to panic. Sienna asked her what was wrong. Alara said the bank made a mistake. She started yelling at the barista, accused the machine of being broken, accused the barista of embarrassing her on purpose. There was a line of people behind them. Someone shouted for them to hurry up. Alara whipped around and screamed at the guy, told him to check his privilege. Then she turned back to the counter and demanded the food for free as compensation for the humiliation. The manager came over, told her to pay or leave. Alara lost it, started screaming about how her father was a millionaire and he would sue them. Ironic considering she called me an oppressor. She swept a mug off the counter and it shattered. Sienna and the other friends backed away. They did not step in to help her. They acted like they didn't know her. Someone filmed it. Greg told me he stepped out because he couldn't bear to watch. Police were called. They escorted her out. No charges pressed, but she was banned from the shop. The video circulated on campus, titled "Entitled Girl Flips Out Over Latte." I saw it a few days later, broke my heart to see her like that. Wild eyes, screaming, completely unhinged. She looked scared beneath the anger. That was the rock bottom. Radio silence for another month. Tuition deadline passed. She had to take a leave of absence because she couldn't pay. She got evicted from her off-campus apartment. Sienna apparently found a new roommate immediately and ditched her. Alara was couch surfing. Julian was a mess. She wanted to drive up there and rescue her. I told her we had to wait. If we saved her now, she would never learn. She has to understand the value of $1 and the weight of her words. 6 weeks after the coffee shop incident, I am at the warehouse on a rainy Tuesday, loading a shipment of copper piping. My foreman tells me there is someone to see me. I walk to the front office. It is Alara. She looks different, no expensive makeup, wearing a simple raincoat and jeans that look worn. Her hair is fading back to its natural color at the roots. She looks thinner and tired. She is standing in the middle of the office where she used to draw pictures. She looks at the floor. I stand there and wait. She takes a shaky breath. Says, "Hey, Dad." I say, "Hello, Alara." She starts to cry, not the angry tears or the manipulative tears, real heavy sobbing. She says she is sorry. She says she was wrong. She says she didn't know how hard it was. She tells me she got a job as a waitress at a diner, working double shifts. Her feet bleed at night. Customers are rude to her. She makes barely enough to buy food. She says she understands now. She says she understands that money represents time and sacrifice. She looks at me and says, "You are not an oppressor. You are the hardest working man I know, and I was an ungrateful brat." I feel the ice around my heart melt. I walk over and wrap my arms around her. She collapses into me, sobs into my work shirt, smells like rain and cheap shampoo. I hold her for a long time. I tell her I love her. I tell her everyone makes mistakes. She asks if she can come home, says she doesn't want money, she just wants a place to sleep and a hot shower. I tell her she is always welcome home. We drive home together. Julian screams when she sees her. Big family hug in the kitchen. Julian makes pot roast. Alara eats 3 servings. She doesn't talk about carbon footprints. She talks about how much her back hurts from carrying trays. We talk late into the night. I tell her the deal. She can live here for free, but no allowance. If she wants to go back to school, she has to apply for scholarships and student loans. I will help with half, but she has to have skin in the game. She has to work part-time, and she has to treat us with respect. She agrees to everything, says she doesn't want to be the person she was, says Sienna was toxic and they aren't friends anymore. Says she got caught up in an echo chamber and lost herself. The next few months were an adjustment. She got a job at a local bookstore. She helps around the house. She is saving money to finish her degree at the state university nearby. Our relationship is different now. It is more real. She asks me about the business, actually listens to the answers, asks about logistics and margins, seems to have a newfound respect for what I do. Last Sunday was my birthday. I didn't expect much. Alara came into the living room with a small box wrapped in newspaper because she didn't buy wrapping paper. I opened it. It was a framed photo, the one of us fishing when she was 7. She had found it in my office. On the back she wrote a note, "Dear Dad, thank you for teaching me to fish and thank you for letting me drown just enough to learn how to swim. I love you. I teared up, looked at her, and she was smiling. A real smile, not a smirk. We are going to be okay. It wasn't easy. Tough love is the hardest thing a parent can do, but I got my daughter back, and she is stronger than she ever was before. Sometimes you have to let them fall so they can learn to stand up. Feels good, man. Be me again. Few months later, business is booming. Alara is excelling at the state university, studying business administration now with a minor in sociology. Says she wants to understand how to build ethical systems from the inside. Proud of her pivot. One evening, I am going over the accounts receivable in my study. Alara knocks on the door. She has a tray with coffee and a sandwich. Says she thought I might be hungry working late. I thank her and she sits in the chair opposite the desk. She looks nervous. Starts picking at a loose thread on her jeans. I ask her what is on her mind. She says she ran into Sienna at the mall. My stomach tightens. I ask how that went. Alara says Sienna tried to guilt trip her, called her a sellout for moving back home. Said she was betraying the cause by submitting to parental authority. I ask Alara what she said back. Alara smiles a little, says she told Sienna that real independence isn't spending someone else's money to critique them. Says she told Sienna that she is paying for her own school now and working 20 hours a week, and that she has never felt more empowered. Sienna apparently didn't know what to say and just walked away. I laugh out loud. Tell her that is the best thing I have heard all year. Alara gets serious for a second, says, Dad, I want to ask you something. I say, shoot. She asks if I can teach her how to read a profit and loss statement. Says she is struggling with her accounting class. I put down my pen, move my chair around the desk, pull up a chair for her next to me, spend the next 2 hours going line by line through my company's financials. Show her the overhead, the labor costs, the fuel surcharges. Show her the razor-thin margins we operate on sometimes. She is fascinated. She points to the line item for employee health care, says, wow, that is a huge number. I tell her it is, but it is the cost of taking care of your people. She nods slowly. Says she never realized how much responsibility I carried. Says it is easy to criticize a system when you don't know how the machine works. I tell her that is wisdom. Knowledge is knowing a tomato is a fruit. Wisdom is not putting it in a fruit salad. She laughs at my dad joke. It feels like old times but better, because now she isn't just my little girl. She is becoming a peer, someone I can respect, not just protect. Weekend rolls around. Julian suggests we host a barbecue for the employees. We used to do this years ago but stopped when Alara got into high school and got too busy. Alara thinks it is a great idea. She takes charge of the planning, goes to the grocery store with a budget I gave her. She comes back with exact change and a receipt. Tells me she used coupons and bought in bulk to save 15%. I am impressed. Day of the barbecue, about 40 guys from the warehouse and their families show up. Backyard is full of laughter and smoke from the grill. Alara is running around serving drinks and playing with the driver's kids. I see her talking to Mike. Mike is one of my oldest drivers, has a bad back and 3 kids in college. I wander over to listen. Mike is telling her about his daughter who wants to be an artist. Alara is listening intently. She tells Mike that he is a hero for supporting his family. Mike looks surprised and touches the brim of his hat. Alara comes over to me later, face flushed from the heat of the grill. Says, Dad, these people are amazing. Says they have so many stories and they work so hard. I say, yes, they do. That is why we do what we do. To keep the wheels turning for them. She looks out over the yard. Says she wants to intern at the company next summer, not in the office. She wants to work in the dispatch center, learn the logistics from the ground up. I tell her it is high stress and loud, drivers screaming over the radio, trucks breaking down in the middle of nowhere. She says she can handle it, says she wants to earn her place. I shake her hand, deal. The sun starts to set. Julian brings out a cake. It is not anyone's birthday. She just wanted to celebrate having the family back together. We sit on the patio furniture. Alara kicks off her shoes, looks at the stars. Says she is writing a paper for her sociology class. Title is The Microeconomy of a Family Unit, How Mutual Respect Maintains Stability. I chuckle, ask if she is going to cite me. She says she is dedicating it to me. Says her professor might hate it because it defends the nuclear family. But she doesn't care. She says truth is truth. I sip my beer, look at my wife and my daughter, realize that the nightmare of last year was necessary. It was the fire that forged the steel. Without the conflict, we would have stayed in a superficial relationship, me enabling her, her resenting me. Now we have truth. Julian leans her head on my shoulder, whispers that she is proud of me. For holding the line, for not caving when it got hard. I squeeze her hand. Alara yawns and says she is going to bed, has an early shift at the bookstore tomorrow. She kisses me on the cheek, says good night, Dad, says thanks for everything. I watch her walk into the house. Screen door slams shut, the sound of home. I sit there for a while longer, thinking about all the other dads out there dealing with the same thing, thinking about how easy it is to lose your kids to the culture. But how you can get them back if you have the courage to say no. Money is a tool, but love is the foundation, and sometimes love looks like an empty bank account and a hard lesson. I finish my beer, turn off the patio lights. Go inside to my family. Life is good, life is very good.